Triggers are really the heart of FreshAiR Realities. Triggers are where you define how content is presented to the user, whether it be by them clicking on it from afar, walking toward it in the right location, or by other means. And triggers also define the flow and pathing of content. To start building triggers, make sure you're on the trigger screen by clicking on the Triggers tab at the top of the screen. To create your first trigger, simply click the New Trigger button here, the icon shown with a marker with the green plus arrow. You'll notice a box pops up right away. We're only going to go over some of the functionality of what you could do with triggers in this first tutorial about triggers. First and foremost, you're going to want to name your trigger something. You do this by clicking on the name and editing it, or hovering over it and clicking the Edit button. Next, you're going to want to define how the trigger is actually triggered. There's a couple of standard options here. Trigger by location is as it seems. The user must actually walk to the location for the trigger to display its content. But there's a few other options here. We're going to focus on Start of Reality trigger as it's the easiest base case to start learning this more complex functionality of triggers. Start of Reality triggers, which you select by clicking on the drop-down of Triggered By here at the top of the trigger, is actually a trigger that automatically starts when, you guessed it, you start the reality, regardless of any of your user's behavior. This could be useful for intro screens or things of that nature. Now that we've defined when the daring entrepreneur will actually be triggered at the start of the reality, next we'll need to define what content is displayed to the user once that happens. You do this by hovering over the content area and clicking on Pick Other. If you'll notice, this takes you to your content page where you can actually hover over and pick any existing content you have here by hitting select on any of this different content, or you can actually create new content on the fly. In previous tutorials, we've made a lot of content, so I'm going to choose the one I want. This is where your different types of tabs will come in handy on the content page once you have a lot of content populated in your reality, as they'll help you narrow down what content you're looking at and keep you organized. I know for this first piece of content I'm going to present to users at the start of the reality, it's going to be a text and image type that I populated already. So I click on the text and image filter just to narrow down the choices of what I'm seeing right now, and I'm going to scroll down to the one I want. When I find the content I want to use, I'll hover over it and hit select. You're automatically taken back to the trigger screen, and you'll see the two basic pieces of each trigger that always need to be filled out. What it's triggered by and what content is displayed is now populated. There's some other options to go over with creating triggers, but we're going to keep it simple for now. I recommend saving your reality at this point and checking out how this works on the FreshAiR app. You can do this by loading the app, then loading your specific reality once you log in, and then trying it out. With any luck, if you've populated your trigger correctly, you'll see whatever content you've told it to show you right when you start the reality. In subsequent tutorials, we'll get a little more in depth with different types of triggers.